This is all the latest news and gossip.
What's up, everybody? We getting started in just a minute. This is Marc Lamont Hill, owner of Uncle Bobby's Coffee and Books, host of BET News. I'm professor at Temple University, and I am a journalist who is absolutely committed to telling stories and putting the spotlight on that which is true, on injustice in the world, and creating all sorts of opportunities for us to expand the community, expand the conversation in the community. So tonight, we have so many things to talk about. We got so much stuff going on, and I want to talk about all of it with y'all. In about 10 minutes, we're going to have our first person here, and that is part of a whole night of conversation. That'll be Aislinn Pulley. She is the founder, one of the co-founders of Chicago BLM. But tonight we got three things happening. We got Aislinn Pulley coming up. We got the legendary Angela Davis jumping on the line, and we also have Jussie Smollett, of course, our dear brother, who is here to answer questions, to talk about what's going on with this case, and to talk about the bigger picture. We're not here. This is not a pep rally. This is not a conversation for a single person. This is a conversation about a deeper issue. Now, of course, in early August, Jussie's lawyers filed a motion to dismiss the current indictment on the grounds that it is based on an illegal and incompetent evidence offered to the grand jury in violation of Jussie's due process rights. Tomorrow, the court will hear arguments on the motion. Because of that, this is actually a wonderful time to be having this conversation. We are going to find out the latest developments in the case, but we also want to talk to people on the ground about what's going on in Chicago. Again, the first person up will be Aislinn Pulley. She is one of the activists on the ground in Chicago who can help us understand what's going on with the Chicago Police Department. She can also help us understand what's going on with the case, but also the bigger conversation around the election, around Black Lives Matter. Again, she's one of the co-founders. We got a whole string of conversations that we're going to have tonight about this. The next thing we're going to do, a shout out to Sabrina Fulton. I see you there. Sabrina, it's good to see you virtually here. I haven't seen you in a while. I think last time I saw you was at Mr. Belafonte's Many Rivers Festival, where Jussie was performing, in fact. Somebody said, why Jussie? The answer to that question is because we're here to have a conversation. We're here to talk to Jussie because Jussie is someone who's been in the news. He's someone who many of y'all have said, why won't you say something? What's going on with the case? We need to know what's going on. For those people who have defended Jussie Smollett, people said, well, why? And we don't want to make it just about Jussie. There's a bigger issue with black folk going on in this country right now, around state violence, around unlawful arrests, around harassment by detectives. All of this stuff is going to be part of the conversation tonight. And so, again, the first person we're going to talk to is Aislinn Pulley. She'll be up in a few minutes. And after that, we'll talk to Dr. Angela Davis, obviously one of the legends in our struggle for freedom and justice here in the United States. And then third, we'll talk to Jussie Smollett. My girl Bevy Smith is in the building as well. She said, I hope folks will be respectful toward Jussie. Chicago PD is dirty. That's the stuff we're going to talk about today. You know, obviously, it should be respectful. There's no reason for us to be anything but respectful. That means that every conversation we have, every question that gets raised, we'll do so in a sense and spirit of love and of solidarity and of truth telling. That means we can ask each other tough questions. We can raise issues. We can expose painful truths, but we can do that in love. We can do that with solidarity, man. Because I ain't gonna lie to y'all, I got questions too. I got stuff I want to know the answer to. I got stuff that isn't clear to me. I got things that I need to know, and I'm gonna make sure that I ask them. And if there's something y'all want me to ask, if there's something in there that y'all think I should be asking, let me know. Because again, that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to ask questions. You know, sometimes somebody said, Mr. A. Wayne said, this conversation is needed and great for us to be clear with each other. That's absolutely true, man. We got these conversations are needed. I'm so frustrated with people who don't want to have conversation but want to complain. Somebody asked me, did you send him the questions beforehand? That's a fair question. I'm laughing because I'm like, damn, y'all think I'm out here like trying to do an infomercial, like I'm here just for the okie doke. Nah, I did not send the questions ahead of time. I absolutely did not. I was very clear that I will ask questions about certain areas, certain topics, but the specific questions, absolutely not. I never do that. I never do that with anybody that I interview, whether it's a celebrity interview, whether it's a political interview. Jussie Smollett is jumping on the request right now. James Down. So how do you feel about what Dave Chappelle said about him? Maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll get one or two light joints in there with the time we have. It's a good question. I'm bringing Jussie on. By the way, all of the accounts, all three of our guests are going to come on Jussie's through Jussie's account. That means that when we talk to Aislinn Pulley, it'll be through Jussie's account. Then we'll get to Dr. Angela Davis through Jussie's account as well. Each person will log out and log right back in. I'm so excited to be joined right now. First by Aislinn Pulley. Aislinn, it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Now, again, you are one of the founders of Chicago BLM, and you know what's going on the ground in Chicago. A lot of people are here, of course, to see me talk to Jussie Smollett, and we are going to get to that. People are here to hear me talk to Angela Davis. We're going to get to that. But we couldn't have a conversation without talking to you first, because you are on the ground in Chicago. Help us understand what's going on and why this situation with Jussie speaks to something bigger, because you're not here just, I said, this isn't a pep rally for Jussie Smollett. This is a conversation. Help me understand why we're having that conversation.
Yeah. Well, it's important to situate that CPD right now is in a consent decree that they were forced into by a class action lawsuit that we filed against CPD. That consent decree that currently exists has been in place for over a year now. And the reports that the Independent Monitor have put out have revealed that CPD has missed 70% of the deadlines in the required report. Right now in Chicago, we have a city budget that pays for over $1.6 billion a year towards CPD, which comprises 40% of the budget, which means that while Chicago, which is one of the largest big cities in the country, the third, has faced a historic deficit in our budget, we have to look at why that is, right? And part of what is happening is the fact that the city of Chicago has paid out over half a billion dollars in settlements regarding torture and CPD misconduct. Right now, CPD and the city of Chicago is considered the false confession capital of the country. We have a torture site here located on the west side where over 7,000 people have been disappeared. And this has been run in international newspapers, and Chicago media has been completely silent. It exists right now, home and square, on the west side. Chicago is the city where Chairman Fred Hampton and Deputy Mark Clark were assassinated by a conspiracy between CPD, the state's attorney's office, and the FBI. The evidence had to be hidden from CPD because CPD is so corrupt that they cannot be trusted with evidence. Evidence was hidden by a pastor who hid the bed in order to use that in court, which then proved that CPD, the state's attorney, and the FBI conspired to assassinate Chairman Fred and Deputy Mark Clark.
That's an important point. Let me pause you for 1 second, just so people who are coming in. We got a lot of people coming into the room. Again, some people are like, I came on Jussie's live. I don't see Jussie. That's absolutely right. You are right. This is Aislinn Pulley. This isn't Jussie Smollett. Jussie will be on in just a few moments. But again, what we wanted to do was have a bigger conversation. So we're starting with the conversation with Aislinn Pulley, who is one of the co-founders of the Chicago Black Lives Matter movement. We are also going to talk to Dr. Angela Davis, and then we're going to talk to Jussie Smollett. So don't worry, if you're here for Jussie, we're going to have those. Your questions are going to get answered. We're going to get to all of that. But again, it's important that we have a serious conversation. And what you've begun to do right now, Aislinn, is help us understand the kind of history of corruption in the police department in Chicago. Part of why that's important, because I want to connect the dots for some folk. Part of why that's important, if I'm understanding you correct, is because a lot of the claims being made about Jussie Smollett are being made based on the word of the police. And part of what you're saying is, well, we can't just take for granted that what the police are saying is true. Am I understanding you correctly?
Exactly. Why all of a sudden days after Van Dyke has convicted of murdering Laquan McDonald, shooting him over 16 times. The first time in Chicago's history that an on-duty white police officer was charged with murdering a black child. Days after that, suddenly we're supposed to suspend the facts that we know that CPD routinely engages in a pattern and practice of racist, unconstitutional behavior per the Department of Justice's report. Suddenly, we're supposed to suspend that belief and believe CPD's narrative in days later? This makes no sense. Chicago is also the city where a police commander tortured over 120 primarily black men, many of whom are still in prison right now. When Jussie was in court, I was in court for Gerald Reed, who is a torture survivor who was tortured so severely. He's been in prison for 28 years. He was tortured so severely that he's in a wheelchair. The judge finally threw out his conviction because of the preponderance of evidence of torture. This is how corrupt Chicago is, from CPD to the judge to the prosecutor's office and onward. This is how corrupt it is. The judge retired after throwing out the conviction, thereby allowing Gerald Reed to go free. And then the judge that took over, who was only supposed to set bond to release him, refused to set bond for 14 months. For 14 months, this torture survivor was kept in Cook County Jail without a charge. And then on February 14th of this year, that judge did an illegal move by throwing out the ruling, thereby sending Gerald Reed back to prison. And a co-equal judge cannot throw out another judge's ruling. And he knows this. This is basic law. So now what happens is, what he also knows, and the reason why he did this, is because it has to now go to appellate court, which is a 3 to 5 year process. So this is the system in which CPD operates, where they are used to having full impunity. They are used to covering up murders. They doctored the video, and suddenly 50 minutes is missing from the Burger King video on the night Laquan McDonald was murdered by Van Dyke. And we're all supposed to just be okay with 50 minutes not being there. They doctored the video for Ronald Johnson, who was killed 8 days before Laquan McDonald, and forensic investigators testified and proved that that video had been doctored. This is CPD. This is how CPD normally functions. So this has to be remembered when we talk about this case.
Are there any things about the particular, when you look at the case of Jussie Smollett in particular, because you've given us a kind of big picture understanding, are there any things in this case that make you raise an eyebrow? Are there anything specifically that make you ask questions?
Yeah, everything. They lost evidence. They deny witnesses. They held, the supposed two people that the brothers, for 47 hours, because you can only hold someone for 48 hours before you release them. And on the 47th hour, where they had refused food and refused drinks, suddenly on the 47th hour, they confess. I mean, this is standard torture, advanced interrogation techniques in a city that is known for torture. That is the false confession capital of the country. The whole thing was it continues to be a PR stunt in order to save face for CPD, who had been in national and international criticism for the DOJ report, the scathing DOJ report for Van Dyke, and for the multiple other murders that they refuse and are incompetent in solving.
You said specifically around losing evidence. The Chicago Police Department said that they could not find video of a hate crime attack, nor of suspects that fit the description that Jussie gave them. 3 days, within 3 days of the attack, they then found videos that seemed to challenge their initial claim. How can we make sense of that?
We make sense of that by looking at history, by looking at the fact that in many other cases, suddenly there's evidence that either disappears or magically appears but is doctored. So Harith Augustus, who was killed in South Shore in 2017, CPD released the so-called dash cam, the body cam video that suddenly had no audio. Mysteriously, there was no audio to it, and then slowed it down. It took multiple lawsuits by the Invisible Institute to reveal the actual footage. The footage was so preponderant and revealing in the lies that the original footage that CPD leaked, that they've created an exhibit to explore how detailed the cover-up for the murder of Aretha Augustus goes. So in case after case after case, Rodney Man Johnson's case, where they denied that there was video evidence, and the only reason why we got the evidence is because his mother, Dorothy Holmes, investigated it herself to find it. Then when the so-called video evidence is released, it's doctored. So this is routine practice. This is not an anomaly. This is how CPD operates.
So before you go, and again, some people are still coming to the room like, where's Jussie at? Where's Jussie at? I promise you, Jussie Smollett will be here. He is physically in the building right now, or in the chat right now. As is Angela Davis. We're having a conversation. We're starting off with my dear sister, then we're going to our other sister, Angela Davis, and then we are going to our brother, Jussie Smollett. So all of your questions in that comment, well, they are going to be asked. I'm going to ask the questions that you want to ask. But again, as we promised, this is not a Jussie Smollett rally. This is a conversation about issues that need to be addressed, some of which are about what's going on in Chicago, some of which are national, and some of which are specific to Jussie Smollett's case. And I think what we're trying to do in this first piece of the conversation is simply to talk about how those things intersect. So I have to run because I do want to bring our sister Angela Davis in. But before you go, can you just help us understand what's a takeaway that we should have specifically around this question? Because there are people in here who say, okay, I believe you that the police are corrupt. I believe you that that Chicago is particularly corrupt. But that doesn't mean that Jussie Smollett is telling the truth. What do you say to the person who says, what do you say to the person who's not persuaded by simply the fact that police are corrupt?
That's not persuaded by that police.
I'm just saying,
and specifically CPD.
CPD, I'm saying, yes.
I would say that person is living in a fantasy. I mean, you have to be a scientist, right? We're not asking people to believe in evidence that does not exist. We're not asking people to believe in something that hasn't been proven. We're asking people to look at the data. This is public information. Look at the data. The data tells us who and who isn't. The data tells us who has, and this has been proven by the federal government, that CPD has a pattern and practice of racist fear against Black people. That is the data that the government put out. That's what I'm asking people to do.
That data is absolutely compelling. And we're going to continue the conversation. Aislinn, Pulley, thank you so much for joining us. And again, we thank you for the work you do with Black Lives Matter in Chicago and all that organizing and activist work you do in the city. And thank you for giving some context on what's happening specifically in Chicago.
Thank you for having me.
All right, there we go. All right, y'all. So we just spoke to Aislinn Pulley, who gave us some super compelling context for the rest of the conversation. I know some of y'all are like, yo, I came for Jussie. We're going to get to Jussie. We're going to get to our dear sister Angela Davis as well. But what Aislinn Pulley was doing was laying out the backdrop for Chicago. You can't understand the Jussie Smollett case. You can't understand the context of the case with Chicago, because the context of Chicago is one where there's a deep and long history of police corruption. Now, you have every right to say, look, I know there's corruption in Chicago. I know you have every right to. You have every right to say, I know the police in Chicago are corrupt. I know police everywhere are corrupt. You could have that position. As the night goes on, we're gonna unveil more pieces of the conversation so you can make your own case. My job is not to persuade you to believe one thing or another. My job is not to convince you that one person is right or another person is wrong with regard to the case. But there is a bigger conversation that we need to spotlight. There is a conversation that we need to have about, look, we got locked up for a second, but I think we're good now. I think we are 100% good now. All right. So that was a little freeze up. But now we got our dear sister Angela Davis, who is coming on and help us understand a little more context of what's going on. And we're also going to talk about the letter that came out today. and we're going to talk to Angela Davis for a bit, and then we're going to talk to Jussie Smollett. So stay right where y'all are, and we're going to jump right on it.
Okay.
Sorry about that. So good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. How are you doing?
I am very, very good. I've recovered from COVID. I have finished some work, and I am just very energized by all the work that I'm seeing on the ground. Just talking to Aislinn, Aislinn Pulley from Chicago, hearing about some of the organizing and activist work that's happening in response to the policing in Chicago and really nationally is so important. Angela, I saw a letter today that was released. It was signed by you. It was signed by Danny Glover. It was signed by Lisa Gay Hamilton. It was signed by scholars like Robin Kelly. And you all were making an argument. What was the purpose of the letter?
Well, I suppose what we're all saying is that precisely because of all of the things that Aislinn Pulley so articulately spoke about regarding the Chicago PD, that we believe Jussie, as compared to the Chicago Police Department. And, you know, I've been a friend of the family for a long time. I have been involved in political causes with Jussie's mother. I followed the careers of the children, and I appreciate their really solid political commitment. And I believe that the Chicago police, along with the political leadership of the city, generated this narrative that would not simply discredit Jussie, but establish themselves as the arbiter of who can claim racist and homophobic harassment and who can't. And of course, it's important that, as Aislinn pointed out, that the Chicago Police Department is a thoroughly corrupt, structurally racist institution. So what is more important, that institution or movements calling for an end to racism, an end to homophobia, an end to misogyny? And let me tell you, I've been involved in quite a number of cases over the years where the police, the Fraternal Order of Police, Police Benevolent Association, all of these formations have been in control of the dominant narrative. I can talk about Mumia Abu Jamal's case. I can talk about Assata Shakur's case. And I don't think that we should allow them to establish, you know, what is the dominant narrative. And I believe that the efforts to prosecute Jussie are designed to justify and validate existing structures of policing precisely at a time when the police and carceral systems are being profoundly criticized by masses of people who have begun to take up abolitionist and, might I say, abolition feminist positions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just it's important to establish that so much of the tradition of abolition and abolition work is rooted in Black feminism and really Black feminists being able to conceive of grander freedom dreams than many of us could. And while you would be too humble to say it, you know, critical resistance and the real modern prison abolition movement is deeply indebted to the work that you've done. People like you, Marianne Makaba, Ruth Gilmore. I mean, so many. And one of the things that we've seen in the last 2 or 3 years is a increased conversation about defunding police, about abolishing police, just reimagining the role that police play in our society. And one of the things that happened after Jussie was charged was that you saw the right saying, see, this is why we need police.
Exactly. And I think that the point that Aislinn was making should be taken seriously by people who are attempting to understand the significance of this case. The timeline, barely 2 weeks after the sentencing of the police officer who not only murdered Laquan McDonald, but covered it up for many, many months. And, and, and of course, this was a perfect opportunity to engage in a public critique of the police, the torture survivors. Andrea Ritchie, who is a Chicago attorney, has published a book called Invisible No More, in which she writes about the many cases of police violence directed against women of color and non-binary and queer people of color. It's so interesting that precisely at this moment, the media focus immediately shifted to Jussie and to the police narrative of the hoax. And so I think this case calls upon us to ask ourselves how vulnerable we are and continue to be to law and order discourse. Even those of us who have long histories of campaigning against racist and homophobic state violence, many of us immediately capitulated to the narrative of the case proposed by the Chicago police. And
that's so important. Can I ask you about that? Because that's a very important point. Again, we were marching in Ferguson, just in the modern era. We've been marching in Ferguson. We marched in LA. We marched in New York. And many of those same people, as soon as the police said, hey, we doubt Jussie, we then said, oh my God, he sold us out. Or, oh my God, this undermines our struggle. Why is it so easy for us to believe the police when they tell us something and not to believe the people who are on the other side of policing?
Well, you know, I don't think that we have extricated ourselves from all of the influences of law and order rhetoric, even though so many of us are involved in campaigns against the police. The police still remain this major arbiter of what is right and wrong. You know, we still oftentimes assume that when something goes wrong, our impulse is immediately to call the police, even if we are opposed to the police.
Right.
I think this is an ideological struggle, and we're talking about the ways in which even our emotions are affected by police narratives. And so, I mean, that I think is the real importance of this case. How do we extricate ourselves? How do we liberate ourselves from the ideological hold of the police? You know, particularly at a time when we're talking about defunding the police, about transforming the way in which security is understood, in which we're talking about not having to send armed humans to address a situation in which, say, a person who experiences a mental health episode, you know, why is it that the police are then sent, and oftentimes that person ends up getting killed?
Absolutely.
And if we continue to uncritically believe the police in Jussie's case, we continue to participate in ideological processes that I think are designed to render these policing structures permanent, with their racism, with their misogyny, with their homophobia.
Now, that's an important point. This is a high stakes decision, and it doesn't just hinge upon what we think about Jussie's case specifically. There's a broader set of issues at stake. In the last month, I've seen Trump rallies, and the Jussie case has been mentioned. I'm watching conservative media again raise this as the reason why we need policing, but also why we can't trust activists who are challenging policing. What happens if we lose the ability to articulate narratives that are believed? What happens, not just in Jussie's case, but more broadly, if we're not able, if Black witness continues to be rendered unacceptable or unbelievable? Because it seems to me that that's a bigger stake here.
Yeah, it is. And I think it also allows us to reflect on the depth of our struggle. You know, what it is we're actually fighting for. We're not simply talking about an end to racist police violence, an end to homophobia and misogyny and the state violence that helps to render them permanent. We're talking about um, liberating our minds also from the influences of these institutions. And that is going to take a very long time. As abolitionists, we recognize that it's not only the actual institutions of the prison and the police that we want to get rid of. We also want to get rid of the ways in which they affect our imagination and the ways in which they affect the way we feel. As abolitionists, we often point out that we're calling for an end to retributive punishment. But then when we find ourselves in a situation where we get into an argument with someone or someone does something to hurt us, immediately we think retributively. We're actually incorporating the violence of the state in our own reactions. And so I think Jussie's case is so important because it helps us to think more clearly about the damage that this can do.
You mentioned this idea also of homophobia and racism in those intersections. That's something that I think hasn't been talked about enough. Jussie was specifically talked about a hate crime based on race and based on sexual identity. And this idea, as you mentioned earlier, that the state is trying to assert itself as the only entity that can decide whose claims are credible or not is a particularly dangerous one as we think about queer folk, because Black queer folk in particular are especially vulnerable in public. I mean, can you talk just a little bit about why that's so significant?
Well, it's significant because we know that, for example, if we consider if we consider Black trans women, absolutely, who are subject to more forms of violence than any other community, and it has been a major struggle to persuade people that when we're talking about ending violence against women, we have to look at those groups that are subject to not only state violence, not only police violence, but also stranger violence and individual violence and intimate violence. And what that means to me is that if we could understand those intersections and we recognize the importance of standing with and standing up for Black trans women, then we will go a long way toward moving to a moment when we no longer have to fear that kind of racist violence, misogynist violence.
And I would just add one more layer to this, and it's actually much less sophisticated than your brilliant analysis. But I think there's a way that Black queer men are not going to be read as credible, because they're in the media. There were these narratives of them being dramatic and hysterical, and there are all these ways that we simply don't construct Black folk as credible witnesses, but Black queer folk as credible witnesses as well, and that plays into this public narrative. The media is a key site that we have to interrogate on this, no?
No, absolutely. And, I'm thinking, I know Jussie personally. I said that before. And the thing that moved me so much in talking to him is that, because of course he's lost everything. He's lost all of his jobs. Most people would say he has lost absolutely everything. Yeah. And he said, I'm really not concerned about all the money I lost, about all the jobs, about all of the contracts. I just want to be believed. I just want to be able to say that people will take me at my word. And that moved me. That actually pushed me to become a little bit more active in the campaign. And Jussie has been involved in so many political causes. He was really active in the last election. He does work, of course, on a lot of LGBTQ issues, work around HIV. I am totally impressed with his public record of political activism. And I see this case also as involving trying to silence someone who is as outspoken as Jussie has been.
Before you go, and everybody who's just come into the room, of course, I'm talking to Dr. Angela Y. Davis, a brilliant scholar, activist, and someone who has been very vocal around this case with Jussie Smollett and the broader implications of it. And of course, she was one of the signees of a letter that was also signed by Danny Glover, Lisa Gay Hamilton, Robin Kelly, and others, which is available at thegrio.com. It's an open letter in solidarity with Jussie Smollett and targeted by police misconduct. If you go to thegrio.com, it'll be on the front page. And of course, I'll be talking to Jussie Smollett in just a few moments. But of course, again, we wanted to set a context so that we didn't make this simply a Jussie Smollett rally, because that's not the goal here. The goal here is to have thoughtful, deep conversation about the issues that get us here and to help us understand how we can get out of here, that are certainly about Jussie Smollett, but aren't exclusively about Jussie Smollett, because there's so many things going on, both in Chicago, around the nation, and around the world, that we have to take seriously with regard to policing, with regard to the prison, with regard to the state. And these are all things that we're talking about right now. But Angela, one of the things that a lot of people have asked is, what do we do, right? We're in a moment where we're sympathetic. Some people have been compelled and persuaded, but they literally don't know what to do right now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, first of all, become involved in the larger movement. I think, Aislinn Pulley, who is such an amazing young woman.
Yes.
And I know that all of your followers who had the opportunity to hear her speak tonight will want to hear more from her. But find out about and delve more deeply into the damage that police have done to not only to Black and Latinx and Indigenous people, but to democracy in this country. But very specifically, there is that open letter that you referred to. It's an open solidarity letter, and it's probably going to circulate on social media, so people will not have problems finding it. So sign that letter. There's also a petition to drop the charges. And I think there's a website called the Jussie Smollett case .wordpress.com.
Yep, which is pinned right at the bottom of the screen. Yep, it's pinned right there at the bottom of the screen. So everyone can check out the information on Jussie's case. You can make your own determinations. But please, regardless of what you determine about Jussie's case, and of course, the people who you've heard from already have made a very compelling argument. But there are also other issues that we need to be thinking about. This is about Jussie, but again, it's about a broader conversation we need to have about justice, about the possibilities about Black freedom, and reimagining what's possible for our future. I mean, that's really what's key. And as always, Angela, thank you so much for talking to me, but thank you for the work that you do. I'm so grateful.
Oh, and thank you, Mark. And hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Oh, we will. We absolutely will. I'll talk to you soon.
We need to talk about Palestine too. So
we need to talk about Palestine. In fact, I'm gonna call you about Palestine. I was thinking about you, by the way. This is a hand-painted George Jackson letter that Mumia Abu Jamal made for me. And every time I keep it up here because it makes me think of him, but it also makes me think of all political prisoners and, of course, of you.
Absolutely.
So we're going to talk Palestine. We're going to talk freedom. We're going to talk abolition. I just love learning from you. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mark.
Bye.
Goodbye.
So I'm going to just tell y'all, it don't matter how many times I meet Angela Davis, how many times I talk to her on the phone, how many times I see her, I still geek out. Like, I'm like still like a little kid. So like, I don't care about meeting like, like celebrities and stuff like that, which, we all do in this business. But Angela Davis, man, I get hyped. My heart still beat a little bit fast because Angela Davis has been a long distance runner and a freedom fighter as we talk about this struggle for Black justice and Black freedom and really justice for everybody. So I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. We got Jussie Smollett coming up in just a few seconds. Jussie's going to jump on the line and we're going to talk about all the stuff. We don't have a lot of time with the brother, but he has agreed to jump on and talk to us a little bit. And I think he's here right now. So let's go.
What's up, brother?
What's up, man?
How are you?
I'm okay. I'm hanging in there, man. How are you? That's the real question.
What's up, man? The real one. I'm doing okay, man. You know what I'm saying? I come from very resilient people, and You know, it's been frustrating to say the least. It's been truly it's been frustrating. It's been beyond frustrating because to be somebody that is so outspoken, to be somebody that's so that speaks up for so much and speaks up about so many things, it's been difficult to be able to kind of be, quiet, to be, to be able to not be able to say all of the things that you want to say, to not be able to yell from the rooftop, because I don't think that people realize it. I've just been wrapped up in some form of a case for the last approaching in, just a couple months, approaching 2 years. So, it's been beyond frustrating. And I think that I'm certainly not going rogue, and I'm not, I'm still taking the advice of my attorneys and everything like that. But I just don't really see, honestly, what staying quiet has really done, like where it has gotten me. So and then there's the bigger picture, that it's so much bigger than me. And it's unfortunate. The main thing, I'm so grateful for Aislinn and Angela and Fanya and Gina and all of these incredible Black women, which really like have really embraced this to be able to see the truth. How am I? It's kind of a weird question to me at this point. The question kind of baffles me at this point, because sometimes sometimes I wake up in the morning and I, am so angry, and then other times I wake up and I can, if I squint real hard, I can see the silver lining. But at the end of the day, the one thing that I always wake up, and no matter how I feel, is I feel like this is an opportunity to have a very real conversation within our own communities about truth, about reconciliation, about the things that we accept, about the things that we ingest, about the ways that the media handles things, about the idea of corporate, corporate network media, or the fact that the police departments, asking the questions of why would a police department need such a PR presence, all of these things come into my mind. But the thing that really gets me is the fact that there are Black and brown women and men behind bars for things that they did not do. You know what I'm saying? Who do not have the ability to pay for somebody to defend them and I saw it with my own eyes, the small amount of time that I was in there. You know what I'm saying? I really don't think that I needed something like this to happen to teach me, or to, I look at myself, I'm like, oh, I'm pretty, I'm certainly, well informed about the plight of us. Of course. But what in these last 2 years, it has humbled me in a way that nobody could ever possibly understand.
Well, let me ask you about a couple of things you're talking about. I know tomorrow's a relatively big, could be a big day. Tomorrow, September 10th, 2020. Your lawyers are going to file a motion, or they've already filed a motion to dismiss the current indictment. Tomorrow, the court will hear arguments on that motion. There's a chance this could, theoretically, there's a chance this could all be over tomorrow. Do you think that's possible? Are you optimistic?
I believe in the Lord. I genuinely do, man. And I believe that I have to give it up to God. And I think that at a certain point, even in the thing that's gotten me through this, even in my own faithless times, you know what I'm saying? And that's just keeping it 100. I've seen God, and I've seen faith through, my family, through my siblings, through my, God knows, through my mother. Older sister prays with me every single day, to the point of sometimes of where I'm just like, Jazz. But it's so important for me to have that, and she knows that. So I'm going to give it up to God. But if I'm being completely honest, no, I don't think that they won't let this go. You know what I'm saying? They won't let it go. It doesn't matter. There is an example being made, and And the sad part is that there's an example being made of someone that did not do what they're being accused of. You got to really look a little bit deeper, and you got to think about the fact that these departments, these prosecutors, these police, their frat boy fraternal order of police, you know, all of these departments, they get funded, they get promotions, they get these types of incentives, not from solving a case, not from solving a case based on truth, based on fact, but in fact winning the case. So if your first motive and your main motivation is to win a case, well, then you're going to win at any cost, which means that you're willing to throw people under the bus that don't deserve to. You're willing to coax people into lying about things and saying things happened that did not happen. You're able to switch a narrative and sell a narrative based on the agenda that you're trying to sell. And that is what has happened for the last almost 2 years to me, but it's what's been happening for far much longer to people all over this nation.
We've gotten a lot of context from the first two people about some of those bigger picture things. I mean, one of the things specifically that the Chicago PD though said with your case is that they could not find a video of a hate crime attack, that they couldn't find anybody who fit the description that you gave them. And that was one of the first things that made the public say, hey, wait a minute, maybe this isn't true. What do you say to that?
I would say, and again, you know, I have to be careful what I say because I'm still in a court case, but at the same time, it's out there. You know, there's also 2 other witnesses that saw white men. So, you know, saw exactly what I say that I saw someone with a rope hanging from their side. These are all things. See, that's the man putting me on pause.
Chicago PD to tap your line.
These are the things that people don't necessarily know because the lies and the things that were not true were yelled from the rooftop. But then the second that something came out that corroborated everything that I said, all of a sudden it was not even a whisper. You know what I'm saying? And again, without going too deep into it, there is a tape of the from what I see, and you know, there is something, but of course it cuts off right before it happens. You know, and
why does it cut off, you think? I mean, you could see how someone could say, wait a minute, this tape cutting off at this moment is awfully convenient. What do you say?
I certainly didn't have the power to cut the tape, so who cut it? That's something y'all got to ask yourselves. I'm not here to, I'm in a case, so y'all gotta do the detective work. You know, you think about the fact that every detective combined that was on my case have combined over 560 formal accusations against them. You know what I'm saying? The Chicago Police Department has paid over $7 million just for these detectives alone in, you know, police misconduct lawsuits. You know, they filed a civil lawsuit against me, you know, because Mayor Emanuel, who really has no place at all to talk about, you know, anything criminal, you know, he sued for $130,000 that he claims is overtime for this investigation that was a farce.
Which has never happened before. I don't know in the history of policing, or Chicago policing specifically, where a civil suit has been sort of put up in that way to recuperate overtime fees or investigation fees.
Right. Narrative was put out so that the people could feel like they were being protected somehow by the city or by and listen, let's be clear, and I haven't had a chance to say this. When I tell you I love Chicago, when I tell you that I love Chicago, that was my home. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Chicago people embraced me in a way, and I embraced Chicago. I literally was in escrow for an apartment that I was buying when all of this happened. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was thinking after the show was over, I was thinking that I was going to move to Chicago and I would be a permanent resident because I loved it that much. The perfect combination of LA and New York to me. You know what I'm saying? But I'm sorry, I think I lost my train of thought.
You were talking about the civil suit and the fact that they actually sued you to recoup the money.
So they did this whole act with the public as if, oh, the taxpayers, you know, this is their money. And well, I don't think that they told the taxpayers that in 2019, the fee that the taxpayers paid of overtime for the CPD was $140 million. I don't think that they said that the taxpayers had to pay the fee for all of the, in 2018, $113 million in police misconduct lawsuits payoffs. You know what I'm saying? So while we're sitting here and we're being like, oh, let's just, you know, he lied. He didn't. No, he didn't. He didn't. And there's more things to show that I did not than there are to show that I did. So while everybody's just acting, and it's interesting, people will say things as fact. You know, they will say things as fact, even when they know that it's not true.
What's the biggest thing? What's the biggest thing you hear people say as a fact that you deem not true?
Well, I mean that I did a hoax, obviously.
Well, it's like fair. I mean, but that's an important thing, because there are people who think that people who are saying, you know, he made an elaborate hoax, that he set all this up for attention, for money, for fame, for likes, for clout, whatever people say. How do you respond to that?
I'm a human being like everybody else. You know what I'm saying? I ingest the media and I read the headlines and all of that type of stuff. And I've been guilty of taking things as face value as well. At face value as well. But when you see that happening and they talking about you and you know that it's not true, somehow it becomes different. And so on one hand, when I step back, I can see the way that they played the narrative, the way that they served it to the people, that it was intentionally created to make people doubt from the very, very beginning. But at the same time, I'm not really living for the people that don't believe, because of the fact that I don't know what to say. Like, I can't take that on. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't take on the issue of the fact that somebody does not believe. All I can do is know that out of all these jokers in this entire situation, I am the only human being who has not changed his story one time in order to fit someone's agenda, in order to fit someone's deal, in order to fit someone's narrative. You know what I'm saying? This is a department that literally has a hold on the media, and a hold on the media in a way where it is the very people, those people that own the media, because now the media is basically owned by like 2.5 people. And literally the media, the people that are affected are the very people that the media, that those people that own it, they want the people of Chicago to suffer. They want the people of the United States of America to suffer. They're not concerned with I'm sorry, give me 1 second.
Yeah. We'll be right back. We're taking a TV timeout. All right, back. Go ahead.
So, like, people calling my phone, I didn't put it on silent. I'm sorry. You know, from the very, very beginning, it was set up to seem like I was lying about something or everything. And that has to do with the fact of the MAGA of it all. You know what I'm saying?
So talk to me about the MAGA of it all. What role does... No, I was gonna say, talk to me about that, because one of the things you said was that someone said you are in MAGA country now, N-word. I guess I can say nigga, right? You can say nigga. And because that's what they said. Actually, they gave you an ER, right? They said nigger, right?
Oh, R.
Hard R. The response that many people made to your claims were people coming from the right, Trump supporters. And so your claims, your allegations were in conversation with their allegations, right? That you know, liberals lie, that this is all a big anti-Trump hoax. Talk to me about how the Trump supporter and the MAGA, the Make America Great Again movement, kind of played into that. Had you not said that part, would this be different?
I think so. And, you know, but the only reason why I said it is because they said it.
Right.
You know, and I don't really know how to make sense of a lot of these things. You know what I'm saying? A lot of these questions that are being posed are difficult because, I'm sorry, this is so raggedy.
It's all good, man.
A lot of these questions that are being posed, I can't answer because of the fact that I simply don't know. You know what I'm saying? And you know, I don't know, man.
Let me ask you, and I know you got to run. I want to ask you a question about the Osundero brothers, because I mean, a key part of the state's case against you is their testimony. It's the I don't know if I want to call it a raid, but they went into their house. They say they found stuff. They say that they have video of them, and that the most damning piece of evidence, in fact, in the public mind, in the media, the most damning piece of evidence is those two brothers who they say, and who are held for 47 hours themselves, who they say made a case against you and demonstrated that you weren't telling the truth. Help me understand the Osundero brothers and how they play a role in this.
Well, again, I can't say too much because I'm in a court case, but what I will say is that what's interesting is the fact that they were in there for 47 hours, and for 47 hours straight said I had absolutely nothing to do with it. And then all of a sudden,
I think we lost Jussie. I'm sure he'll be right back. I don't want y'all conspiracy theory people out there. I'm sure his phone died or the call was dropped. But I was asking him the question about the Osundero brothers. The Osundero brothers were the main suspects in the case, and they were part of the conversation. At some point, they were held. At some point, they made their own statements, and obviously, this is all part of the conversation. I'm here to ask the questions, y'all. I see y'all in the comment section asking me to ask different things. Jussie's been very generous with his time, as has everyone this evening, and I thank y'all for being out here. Again, he's going to jump right back on as we wrap up this conversation. I just want him to get an opportunity to finish his thought. I'm guessing his phone died, so we're just going to take more questions, or not more questions. We're going to take. I'll read your comments as we wait, but it should just be another minute. But I'm very, very happy that Jussie was generous enough to take some time with us. And again, just to be clear, tomorrow is his hearing, and the court will hear arguments on the motion to dismiss the charges. It'll be interesting to see what happens. From what I see, most people are not optimistic that they'll be dropped. That's not a judgment on his innocence or guilt. It's just to say that it doesn't seem to be where the state is at this moment, that they're going to do it. But we'll see what happens. It'll be an interesting development. But again, I'm going to wait for Jussie for just a few more minutes because he was in the middle of answering that one question, and then we'll wrap out. But I hope again, what you will see is, let me see one second. I'm just checking my notes. Everybody though, please make sure you read that letter. If someone can drop that link in for me, I'll pin it. I don't want to drop out of where I am, but it's on thegrio.com right now. It's an open letter in solidarity with Jussie Smollett, and all targeted by police misconduct. As you can see this evening, many of the people who are supporting Jussie Smollett, they sincerely support Jussie Smollett, but they also understand there's a bigger conversation to be had. And my argument to you tonight, as a journalist, my job here isn't to pick winners and losers. It's not to decide innocence or guilt, but it is to say that there's a bigger conversation that we need to be having in addition to this conversation about Jussie's case, which is so critical. That means that we should be thinking and talking about police misconduct. We should be, with a microscope, looking at Chicago PD. We should be thinking about all the things that are going on, because this is no joke. Jussie's back. I'm going to take his. I'm going to bring him back in so I can let my brother finish his thought, and then we'll wrap up out of it. Let's see where we go here. Let's see, he's coming up now.
y'all thought I was a sucker who was scared.
My brother, there we go.
Question.
I said, man, you gonna have people think. I was like, the joke's gonna be on 1,000 if he don't come back. They're gonna be like, oh wait, I'll be right back, and then you just don't come back no more.
No.
Now, I know you don't never duck, man.
All I can say is that they were in there for 47 hours. They never said that. They continued to say I had absolutely nothing to do with it, and then they changed their story at the last minute. So again, that's really all I can say about it. That's all I can say about it. You know, y'all gotta read though, man. Y'all gotta, like, the information is not that hard to find if you actually look for it. And, you know, the letter that so many of these brilliant, you know, activists and artists have put together, it really does lay it out, you know. So there's really not a lot that I even necessarily need to say if people just go and read.
Absolutely. And I just pinned that letter there for y'all. It's an open letter in solidarity with Jussie Smollett and all targeted by police misconduct. Again, it has been signed by many people, from Linda Sarsour to Angela Robinson to Teak Milan, Robin Kelly, Erica Huggins, Lisa Gay Hamilton, Danny Glover, Gina Dent, Fania Davis, Angela Davis, Gwen Carr, Gina Belafonte, and Melina Abdullah. We're talking about a range of people here who are all standing in defense of you. At the same time, there are many people who are deeply critical of you. What do you say to the people who say, I hear you, but I'm still unconvinced? What do you tell them to do? Obviously, I know you want them to read, but anything else?
No.
And that's okay. That's
you know
okay.
what I'm saying? I wish that I had something brilliant to say, but you know what I'm saying? It's like, I've been going through this stuff for almost 2 years. You know what I'm saying? It's like, no one understands the amount of threats that I have received. No one understands the amount of threats that my family, that my mother has received. You know what I'm saying? So while everybody's expecting me to jump online, everybody's expecting for me to talk, everybody's expecting to do that. You know, at first that might have flown. But there are more important things at this point than a show, a job, a gig. You know what I'm saying? So people have to understand that it, in fact, is not my job to convince people that I did not do this. It's not. It's not. And we should not be asking people who. This is what I would say, and then I really should stop because I'm probably going to start talking too much because I haven't been able to talk about this. So it's like I'll start yapping, and I need to like chill on that. What I would say is this: there would be no reason for me to do something like this. And I have a hard time kind of starting to say that because I don't want to appear like I'm trying to convince people. But at the end of the day, if we're really keeping it real, kind of are, you know, there would be no reason for me to do something foolish. And I really do believe that at a certain point, people's history should mean something. And I do think that if you look at all of the things that were happening for me, and then all of the opportunities and all of the money or the opportunities, whatever, that I have lost at this point, if in fact what they said was true, the smart thing to do would be to admit that, because at least there would be a place to work back from. You know what I'm saying? This is bullshit. It's bullshit. And I can try to sit here and I can try to act like, you know, it's you know, well, we're going to be peaceful about this. No, this is bullshit. This is bullshit. And I'm fucking tired of it. I'm tired of it. And this is not an exclusive. This is not anything like that. I don't want to be sitting there crying on a couch ever fucking again. You know what I'm saying? But nobody understands what the fuck we have gone through. Nobody understands. And the people that do understand, continuously, their voices are tried to be silent as well. They will always try to silence the people who are simply speaking the truth. And you need to start asking yourself, why is that? Why is it so important to silence the very people who are simply telling the truth and point those people as the liars? Because the liars are the ones that are projecting. They're projecting on us, when in actuality, all we're trying to do is simply tell the truth. I have never told anything other than that. And I'm through with attempting to convince people. It's always the elephant in the room. It's always all of that. Enough is enough. You don't know me. You don't know me. And you need to look at my history, and then maybe we can talk. But we don't even have to do that. I love my people. I will forever love my people. What I have learned through this, though, is that not everybody is a part of my community. The people who are a part of my community are the people that choose to be a part of my village, period. So as far as this goes, nah, I wouldn't do anything like this. And this is the last thing I'll say. I am a Black man. I am a same gender loving, prideful to a fault man who leads with his Blackness. The last thing that I want to do is be portrayed as a victim. That shit is real. You know what I'm saying? It would not be something. I've never been an attention whore. I've never brought my partner on a carpet. I've never done any of that. I've never told that, you know, what I donate or what I support. Never do that, because that's not what it's for. And that's what I was raised to do, to never, ever just expect something from what you do. This is not who I am. So this whole dog and pony show that they're doing, this ain't for me. I don't even have to, I have to be there physically, but this ain't for me. Their whole thing that they're gonna do tomorrow, that's not for me. I've checked out. I've moved on. I've moved on to continue to fight for my people. They can try. My mother told me, she said, what is the easiest way to make your work null and void? Make you the enemy of the very people that work is with and for. You're not going to keep on silencing my advocacy. You're not going to keep on trying to act as if it's frivolous. You're not going to keep on trying to act as if it's attention grabbing. I know that there are a million things to care about right now. Trust me, nobody is more sick of this bullshit than me. Trust me. Trust me. I see the comments. You know what I'm saying? Not on this specifically.
I know what you mean.
Comments. But I see, you know, oh, we're over this. It's above me now. You dang right. It's above me too. But it's actually beneath us. It's beneath us. But I gotta go, man. You know what I'm saying?
I know you gotta go. Yo, thank you. My brother, thank you for taking some time. I'm glad you got to speak your truth. I'm glad you got to say it with your own words. But here's the thing, brother.
I don't speak my truth. There is no such thing as your or my truth. There is only one truth. I don't speak my truth. I speak the truth. So hold on to that.
That's
Please
facts.
Hold on to that.
That's facts, bro. I'm glad you got a chance to do that. I'm hopeful that the truth will come out, and I hope that you get justice, brother. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. I love y'all. Thank you so much, everybody. I love y'all. Y'all have no idea. So I hope this gave y'all something to hold on to. I appreciate y'all. And again, shout out to everybody who has been supporting. Like, I really appreciate y'all.
All right, y'all. That was it, man. You got to hear from the brother himself. We had an amazing conversation tonight. We had a couple of amazing conversations tonight. We talked to 3 people who are intimately connected to the case in various ways. The first person, of course, was our dear sister, Aislinn Pulley, founder of Black Lives Matter Chicago, co-founder, who helped us understand the bigger context of what was going on, the history of Chicago police, and really the history of policing in the United States. We also heard from our dear sister, Angela Davis, who helped us understand the relationship between that local history and the national movements that are happening on the ground against policing, to defund, to reimagine the world, and how this case can be a signpost of what's possible, but also stand in the way of helping us get to a new imagination around policing and prisons. And then we got to talk to the brother himself. You got to hear Jussie Smollett talk from his own voice about what the truth is. You got to hear him talk about what happened. You got him to answer some of the most pressing questions that people had. It's the first time in a very, very, very long time that he spoke out, and I'm glad that he allowed me to be the person to do it. So I want to thank y'all for joining me, and I'll talk to you all again soon. Peace.